Hi, Jodi with Empowered Heart Connections. No matter how wonderful our families are, they have probably left us with some confusion, questions, or maybe even concerns about what interaction should look like, and what's the best, most effective relationship, and what does it mean to feel loved, and what does it mean to have emotions. So depending on what your family dynamic looked like, you may be carrying some of these behavior patterns and beliefs into your current relationships, whether consciously or subconsciously. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is some ways in which our parental interactions, our family dynamics growing up can impact us in present day, and some tools to combat that. So one way that can be challenging for people to integrate their emotional connection with other people is if they have maybe a parent who is emotionally volatile or emotionally unavailable, or maybe doesn't know how to connect with you and your emotions. So this may impact the way you interact and connect with other people. So if your parent was emotionally unavailable, you might have interpreted that as I'm not loved, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, or emotions aren't okay. And the opposite goes for if your parent was potentially emotionally volatile, right? That emotional volatility may become normal in your experience, right? And when people are dysregulated emotionally, when they're yelling, when they're crying a lot, when you don't really know what kind of emotion is going to come up next, that can become the norm for you. All right, not that that's necessarily normal, but that for you in those situations it becomes familiar, or comfortably uncomfortable, as I like to say. And this can lead you to kind of a familiarity bias with looking for replicating those dynamics because that's what you know, right? So, but if you are maybe believing that, hey, emotional dysregulation is normal or okay or acceptable, then that might be what you're drawn towards because of that familiarity bias, because you are used to that interaction feels comfortable, familiar, right? And so we can replicate that unintentionally. And so you might be ruling out potential good partners because you are looking to regulate either that emotional volatility, or, as I said before, emotionally unavailable, or somebody who maybe doesn't allow emotional interaction or conversation. So it is difficult to break that pattern or belief that we may have been created from the people that raised us, that we were taught, hey, suck it up. Whenever you have an emotion, you don't really express it, you just work through it, right? Or if we were taught, when we do have an emotion, we express it all, we say everything, we don't think before we talk. So depending on what your family dynamic was with emotional expression and regulation, you can really gravitate towards someone who has a similar emotional coping style, which can be complicating things, right? And one of the benefits about this is that if you are learning about what's happening with your emotional connection style or your emotional expression style, you can really learn and grow that, hey, for example, I was kind of sarcastic in my relationship, and I had to learn in my relationship, thanks to my sweet husband. She's saying, why did you say it like that? That kind of hurt my feelings. That I was not able to express my emotions because I wasn't clear on how to express my emotions. It's like, oh, well, I thought sarcasm was how you expressed emotions. Not saying, oh, I'm upset, or I didn't like that, or that hurt my feelings, right? So we can learn and grow from these habitual patterns of behavior that we've created over time, but it can take a little digging to figure out what those emotional coping styles are and what messages you're trying to unravel about that. The other one is conflict resolution, right? If your parents were conflict avoidant, or if they were, again, really volatile with addressing every issue, or hypercritical, these patterns of behaviors might be things that we replicate ourselves, or again are drawn to a partner who also maybe has the same type of conflict resolution or conflict avoidant type of coping mechanisms. So again, we're looking for that familiarity bias. So it may be something to evaluate is, what kind of conflict resolution am I looking for? What kind of patterns have I been having in the history? And again, we'll talk more about some tools to work on this. But the conflict, the way in which people handle conflict are certainly something that has been historical and often replicated, and take some awareness to really recognize, what is it about this person that I'm drawn to? Is it that they're a good match for me? We bring things to each other's lives. Or is it that this is just comfortably uncomfortable, that we're familiar with dysfunctional patterns that we keep kind of promoting and replicating in each other? The other part is the caregiving roles. If you had to care for a parent's emotional needs as a kid, you may be drawn to partners who need fixing. Or if you were maybe not cared for enough by a parent, you may be drawn to somebody who's maybe an over caretaker. So really recognizing what those patterns are can give you some awareness about what you're maybe replicating. And it takes some, again, assessment about some past relationships. What have I done in past relationships? What feels like patterns that are repeating themselves and keep coming up? And what haven't I really addressed? So again, being aware that those standard or familiar family dynamics can really make an impact on how you are interacting in a relationship, and recognizing when that familiarity bias is keeping you stuck in replicating those patterns that maybe aren't so helpful for you. The other part is a fear of rejection or abandonment. If love was conditional in childhood, you may either avoid relationships to protect yourself, or overextend to keep a partner close. Like, so you're standing on your head to keep this partner from rejecting you or abandoning you, even though maybe it's not a good fit, or you are preemptively kind of rejecting or shutting people down in order to preemptively protect yourself, right? All of these things don't necessarily work very effectively, but we do develop these coping skills because it's all we have whenever we're kids. That's all we understand and know as kids, and that's why it's important to make sure we're really evaluating these as adults to work through them in a way that's really productive. So again, as I mentioned, these patterns are usually very common. We all have some sort of pattern of behavior or dysfunctional family history that we are potentially recreating or repeating in our future relationships. And it's important to identify those patterns, and sometimes getting like a notebook or a journal or something to really write down kind of those dynamics in your parents' relationships and how they interacted with you, and compare them to your relationships that you've been in recently and in the past. So what are those themes that keep repeating themselves? Is it that emotional unavailability? Is that control? Is there codependency? Is there that emotional volatility? Are you rejecting, or are they rejecting? Are you replicating that criticism? So really assessing kind of what those patterns are, what has been historical and what's repeating itself. And how did each of your parents' behavior or attitudes influence your idea of love and what that means to you? And is that an accurate representation of what you want in your life, or is that kind of the story that you've told yourself to kind of make sense of the dysfunction as a kid? And then for you to really assess, what emotions do you associate with love? And it may be chaos, it may be uncertainty, it may be insecurity. And those are some really important things to kind of work through, and to recognize what aspects of your childhood relationships are you unconsciously recreating, and what kind of relationship do you want to create? What kind of relationship can you consciously create to make sure that you're getting your needs met, and again, drawing in a partner, or even navigating a partnership that you already have in a way that can really unravel some of those things that might be keeping you stuck. The other thing is to kind of reflect on what triggers you in a relationship. Again, writing this down can be really helpful. Connecting to past experiences. So are there particular things, like is jealousy a big issue for you, or is it insecurity, or is it when your partner doesn't hear and validate your emotions immediately, or is it somebody, that's not a caretaker? What kind of those things are activating you, and are they Are they things that, do you think anybody would be activated by? Like, obviously somebody calls you a name, then that's probably going to trigger you. But if it's something more like you're threatened or feel like your partner may be cheating on you and there isn't really any indication of that, or maybe you're triggered by the way they put the items that you have on the counter, or maybe they are organizing in a particular way that's triggering. So there are all kinds of things that can trigger you that may be kind of a subconsciously related to that childhood experience. So really evaluating what that is. Again, if being ignored by your partner makes you anxious, or if you feel like your partner is ignoring you and it makes you anxious, where was there a childhood experience that might have replicated that experience? And really just kind of digging into what are those experiences historically that maybe made me feel this way? Is this emotional reaction being amplified by a previous experience? And a lot of times people will find that that's the case. And it may take a little while to kind of explore what that is. If you have a good relationship with your parents, it might be a good thing to kind of check in with. Like, hey, what were some things that seemed like they were hard for me as a kid? What did I seem to be the most reactive about? Or what shut me down? And even siblings can be helpful for this exploration process. Again, journaling your feelings when conflict arises to separate those past wounds from present wounds whenever you are having this conflict today is to really go, okay, wait a second, why am I really upset, to really break down some of those the thought processes around that. Is this really upsetting because my partner, didn't respond to me immediately when I asked them a question? Or is this maybe a trigger for me feeling unheard and invalidated from childhood? So really teasing those out, because obviously there are certainly legitimate things that are triggering and upsetting, and it's not that you have to discount everything that's upsetting, but to kind of tease that out is this an overreaction? Is this maybe a childhood wound I'm carrying with me? Or is this potentially just an issue that I need addressed in this current relationship? All right. And some other questions is, what would my healed self do in this moment? Is to really kind of evaluate if I wasn't really holding on to those childhood wounds, how do you think I would respond differently? What would I do in this moment that may be more helpful, maybe more productive in this moment that would move me forward in a more productive way? The other aspect, and I know a lot of people think this is cheesy, but is changing those relationship beliefs with affirmations. So is really evaluating what those beliefs are about yourself and about love and about all of the ways we connect in a relationship, what's important. And then if you're finding that you're stuck with some of those beliefs, that I'm not worthy, or I don't deserve security, I don't deserve love, to really practice on reversing those belief systems. And I know this is hard because, especially if you're really firmly believing those negative beliefs, it's difficult to switch that around. But thinking about examples in your life where those situations are believable, like, have you been loved? Has anyone ever really loved you? When have you felt secure? And really kind of expanding on that a bit. So even if it's a dog or a cat or a pet, what did I experience when I felt that really true love feeling, and why am I worthy of that? And then writing down those affirmations that I am worthy of a secure and supportive and loving relationship. And even if it doesn't feel believable, to continue rewriting and rewriting and reiterating it, because remember, our brains believe what we tell them. Another affirmation could be love should feel safe, not like a constant struggle, or love can feel safe, or love is safe, or I can choose to make love safe, or I can choose who to pick who is safe. I choose partners who meet my mutual needs, really making it to the affirmative, so that I am capable, I am lovable, I am enough. And again, I know it feels hard whenever you're doubting these things, but remember, when you tell yourself something, and the more we repeat it, the more we believe it. So continue to write down those affirmations, especially if that doubt comes up, to really go back to those beliefs. And if you can come up with some reasons why that's true, that can make it even more believable. if you can do these daily affirmations daily, obviously that makes a big difference. It's make sure you're checking in with yourself every single day, at least a few times, and really reiterating some of these beliefs that you really want to shift up a bit. And again, try to make it believable. Then choosing consciously to select partner deliberately and in a really clear, conscious way, rather than just settling for comfortability. Again, we don't want to be comfortably uncomfortable. We want to find partners that are compatible and that we appreciate and acknowledge and really support our growth and our connection to health and wellness, right? So we want to do some exercises here with creating non-negotiables versus familiar but unhealthy. Okay, so some non-negotiables, like the column lists 5 qualities you truly need in a partner, like emotional availability, kindness, reliability, and then so we want some separate columns here. So we're going to have column 1 again, which is the list of qualities you truly need in a partner, and then column 2, where you write down traits that you're drawn to that mirror past dysfunction. So we want 2 separate columns to really help delineate those 2 places that you want to be. That these non-negotiables, which are the list of qualities that you require in order to be in a relationship, and then in the other column, these patterns and behaviors and traits that may be keeping you picking partners or being in relationships or replicating patterns in relationships that are keeping you mirroring those dysfunctional patterns from childhood. So that column 2 would contain things probably like avoidance, intensity, inconsistency, instability, emotionally dysregulated. So again, those are 2 separate things. Is the non-negotiables, the things that you really want in a current relationship, and the comfortably uncomfortable situations that continue to bear their ugly head in the relationships that you're experiencing now. And then some questions to ask around this is, am I choosing this person because they align with my healed self or my ideal self or my wounded self, right? So this is some questions to explore whenever you're doing this. Another tool is to really recognize how those early experiences made you feel insecure in connecting with other people, and to work on developing more secure behaviors when it comes to connecting with another human being. So recognizing what those patterns were that were keeping you kind of stuck, and doing some things like communicating your needs openly instead of being passive aggressive or sarcastic or fearing rejection. Regulating your own emotions, learning to self-soothe your emotions, learning instead of reacting out of those old wounds to really self-regulate and notice what those feelings are when they come up and breathe through them and let them be. And to seek consistency. So we want partners that show reliability, not inconsistency. So we want to really be exploring like what I feel in this situation, what I need in this situation, and addressing those moments whenever they come up, those feelings and those dysregulated emotions, really addressing them as they arise, so that you're not continually feeling caught and taken off guard whenever things are emotional in your situation, in your relationship. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Please like and subscribe, and maybe share this with a friend if you found this helpful. Thank you so much for watching.